Good evening. Welcome to the Friday Study Circle. Thank you so much for joining in. And last time we had a very good discussion. Monica was here as well. So today it's us again. So Sneha is here as well. Here, as we all know, we mostly reflect on the words of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, but anything from any martyr and mystic for reflection or sharing is most welcome. So just to break the pattern, I will go first. I had read something very beautiful on forgiveness, actually. So I'll just share that with us here, and then we'll take it from there. So I'll share my screen. Yeah, so I hope we can see it. So it says, when we ask forgiveness of the divine, does he always forgive us? So that's the question. And Sri Aurobindo says, no, I think it's Mother, but she's, yeah. So Sri Aurobindo himself gives us the divine's answer. Forgive whom and what? The Lord knows that all is himself, and therefore that all actions are his, and all things are himself. To forgive, one must be other than the one who's forgiven, and the thing to be forgiven must have been done by someone other than oneself. I mean, it could sound like a word play, and yet there's so much depth in it. So going further, the truth is that when you ask forgiveness, you hope that the dire consequences of what you have done will be wiped away. But that's possible only if the causes of the error you have committed have themselves disappeared. If you have made a mistake through ignorance, the ignorance must disappear. If you have made a mistake through bad will, the bad will must disappear and be replaced by goodwill. Mere regret will not do. It must be accompanied by a step forward. For the universe is constantly evolving. Nothing is at a standstill. Everything is perpetually changing, moving forward or backward. Things or acts that set us back seem bad to us and cause confusion and disorder. The only remedy for them is a radical forward movement, a progress. This new orientation alone can annul the consequences of the backward movement. I mean, to me, it feels like, this felt like a revision of the harmony circle, which was on, regret, mistakes, kind of forgiveness. And yet it was really nice. So anything on this, anybody, any comments, any reflections?
Taru, can you please read the first paragraph again? When we
Yes,
ask.
Shadaji, would you like to read it?
Yeah, shall I read? Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Sri Aurobindo himself gives us the divine's answer. Forgive whom and what? The Lord knows that all is himself, and therefore that all actions are his and all things are himself. To forgive, one must be other than the one who is forgiven, and the thing to be forgiven must have been done by someone other than oneself. What does it mean actually? To forgive, one must be other than the one. That means we are. What does that mean, Tarun?
Yeah, Sadaji, this basically, how it says, especially in the Gita also, it's put very beautifully that it's like God wanted to experience himself. So he created, the creation, he created so many. So basically, if I say, can I forgive? There has to be somebody other than me to forgive, right? Like it's saying, does God forgive? But if God knows all is me, right? Everyone is me, who does he have to forgive? So forgive.
So it means the oneness.
Yeah, it means that it's he, like, here it says that does the divine forgive, right? So the answer is when the divine knows that we are all divine, right? We are all his extensions.
Okay.
So the Bhagwan was created for him to experience himself, and yet that's why we came into the picture. So that's the extension, that who will he forgive? You know, when he knows he is doing it, he is experiencing, you know, different things to different people and stuff. So hence, that was the thing, that whom will he forgive and what will he forgive? The Lord knows that all is himself, and therefore all actions are his and all things are himself. To forgive, one must be other than the one who is forgiven. And the thing to be forgiven must have been done by someone other than oneself.
Okay.
I think it's a very, you know, bird eye view, like, you know, kind of a very cosmic answer, the first one, that in the big picture, what is there to forgive? Who can he forgive and how? And this is we touched last time also, right? That the truth is that we basically, it's not about what I did, it's about what it led to, right? The consequences or the hurt that, you know, my mistakes caused. And the only solution is to change, right? Like whoever had made a mistake, they must commit never to make that mistake again. So that's the further, right? The ignorance must disappear and bad will must. So that's the extension of that, because everything is evolving. And yet I want to hold on to everything and stand still, right? This is my life. This is my routine. These are my loved ones. Nothing should change, right? So just that forgiveness also, we must see that as an evolution, that, okay, I did this. That means I must be stuck here, or this is where, you know, I get the trigger from, and I have to move beyond that. So just this, and whatever I feel is taking me forward could also be something that's taking me back, right? So it's like, we don't know what it is, so don't get stuck, don't get, you know, any, like, we must see that what is making me kind of, you know, where is my evolution further, where is my growth? And I cannot judge whether this is good or bad, and I shouldn't get into that. There's a very beautiful Rumi quote. I'm forgetting the thing, but it's something like, you know, how can you say your world is going upside down when you don't know which side is up? You know, it's like something like this. I share it. It was very beautiful. Yeah. So I have to just excuse myself for 1 minute. Anything from anybody, please, please reflect. Thank you. Yeah. So was anybody speaking anything?
Good evening, everybody. I was remembering about inclusiveness. This thought was coming that everything is one. So the inclusiveness was coming to mind. And I was reminded of a story. Adi Shankaracharya at Benares, he used to take bath early in the morning, about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock early morning, the Ganges. And then he used to come and he used to start his day actually. And one particular early morning, he was coming back after taking a bath in the Ganges. And then suddenly one Chandal was carrying the pig meat. Chandal touched him. Then Adi Shankaracharya says, this Chandal, you have touched me. The Chandal says that Guruji, I have not touched you, neither you have touched me. That's what he said. So the meaning thereby is that for touching, there are two persons required. So if it is one, so you cannot touch. How can you touch yourself? So something like that. So exactly the same thing was coming to the mind here. Sri Aurobindo says that, that to whom you are going to say, and exactly that there is only one, there is a singular. So the question does not arise of whom to complain or that was coming to my mind. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Captain. An unrelated story with a different theme, but it was very beautiful, and I'll just share it. I got reminded of it. The story was that one day a girl was running to meet her lover. She was late. She was a Muslim lady, and she was running. And on her way, there was this what do you call it? A Muslim priest and imam. An imam was sitting there, and he was giving he was doing his prayers. He was bending down, and of course, by mistake, the girl kind of her feet touched the imam. And the imam got so angry, and he got up and he was like, "Hi, have you gone mad, you woman? Like, don't you know who I am? How could you touch me?" And stuff. And, the lady said that, I don't know what I did, but I just know one thing, that I am running in the love of a mere mortal. And I don't know who I touched or where I'm keeping my step, because, I'm fully occupied with the thought of who I'm about to meet. And here you claim to be kind of, in love with God, and you could see me kicking you or my feet touching you. So I'm unable to understand what is happening. So I didn't say it very nicely. It was, it's I don't know. It was a very beautiful story when I heard it. So it's just about, I don't know, devotion and stuff. Yeah. So anybody on any comments more on this, forgiveness or anything else? So we can take the next sharing. Whoever is ready can unmute and please tell me what to search for, and I'll pull that up. Captain, would you like to go next?
I was reading today about inner cleanliness. It starts with, I have known people. I have known people.
I've known people who had this capacity.
No, not.
Okay, I've known people who used to be petrified. What's after I have known people, Captain?
After that, in the bracket, say many, not only a few. I mean, among those who do yoga.
Okay. Oh wow, lot of people. Yes, here it is.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, please.
So this is about inner cleanliness. I have known people, many, not only a few. I mean, among those who do yoga, I have known many who every time they had a fine aspiration, and their aspiration was very strong, and they received an answer to this aspiration every time. The very same day, or at the latest, the next day, they had a complete setback of consciousness and were facing the exact opposite of their aspiration. Such things happen almost constantly. Well, these people have developed only the positive side. They make a kind of discipline of aspiration. They ask for help. They try to come into contact with higher forces. They succeed in this. They have experiences, but they have completely neglected cleaning their room. It has remained as dirty as ever. And so, naturally, when the experience has gone, this dirt becomes still more repulsive than before. One must never neglect to clean one's room. It is very important. Inner cleanliness is at least as important as outer cleanliness. Vivekananda has written, I don't know the original, I have only read the French translation. One must every morning clean one's soul and one's body. But if you don't have time for both, it is better to clean the soul than clean the body. So this is about the cleanliness. The mother has said that while we are having the strong aspiration, but sometimes maybe the next day we become just opposite to this aspiration. And mother is saying that this is due to cleanliness, that cleanliness has not been in place properly. So we are living in the dirt, and that is the repulsive than before. So we must clean our room. So what we see that in all the ashrams and all this. So they got the morning rituals. That is actually the cleaning type of rituals, fixing the mind again fresh or anew look in the morning, and they again take the wood or they do the prayer and the cleanliness takes place. Like in the idols are also in the Hindu temples, they have been giving bath and with some milk, honey, and all this it takes place. So the cleanliness it gives that the mind as well as the soul is clean. The mother says it is better to clean the soul than clean the body. If there is no fire. So it's very nice, without cleanliness, in the morning when we get up, so we do our body, the brushing and this, and also we are getting clean. So there is the external cleaning. Similarly, the internal cleaning of the mind and the soul are also to take place. So then probably we will not be having this sort of loss of consciousness, shift back of consciousness, which is we are facing opposite to the situation. So I like to do my cleanliness is must. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Captain. I think it's really important. It's a very important point because somewhere in our usual life, there's so much importance given to, the regular chores, like, of course, like bathing oneself, cleaning the house, doing this, making all your surroundings clean. And somehow your practices are always kind of pushed and after this, like, I'll first do this, I'll this, and then I'll sit and probably, I don't know, write something or meditate or anything. And lot of times, because this kind of ends up being the end of your priority list, still on the priority, but end, we miss it. So this, if I have a choice, if I have limited time and if I have to choose, here Swami Vivekananda and what Mother was sharing is saying that if I have less time, I will clean my soul and not my house or the body. If I have, very less time, I will not even think about cleaning the house or the body. I'll clean my soul because, we keep forgetting that what will go with us. We keep focusing on, the exterior, the house, the floor and stuff. I remember once Acharya Prashant had shared a beautiful example. I would know how to word it right. But he was like, we are so like when we get up in the morning and we see a dirty house, there's something that kind of pokes us that, oh my God, clean this, clean that. There's so much mess. And he was like, basically, the one who's okay sitting in the mess. Like, if you can actually sit and meditate on a pile of rubbish, like, I'm not saying actually trash, but if everything is haywire, and then also you can say, okay, let me first, do what is the most important, and then I will get to this. He said that one I know is on the path sincerely. Because jo jhadu poche se, upar uthe, kind of, who can get, because there's something in me which does not let me. It's like it's repulsive and stuff. So I thought that was pretty nice. And the same thing is being said here. And especially, I don't know, it's just about our culture, but I think everywhere, like, no, matlab, I don't know, 104 fever chadao, but nahana to zarur hai. One has to take a shower, it's about purity of the body and stuff. I just find it funny, not saying please don't take a shower, please do. And yet we have to keep remembering what is important and what is my priority. There's a very famous, I don't know famous, but it's a beautiful quote from Bulle Shah. There's something in his song that, Jo Rab Milda Nande Dhonde, to Milda Dhadwa and matlab fishes and frogs. If God was found, kind of because of showering, then probably the frogs and the fishes would have been the first to achieve liberation. So there's a lot of more verses there. And in the end, he said that the one who takes his name, who becomes his name, he would be the one who would find God. So yeah, so anybody else on this? I'll just reshare the screen. And again, I feel even on this cleaning of the room, how it says that you have an experience and suddenly when it's gone, you go even further in the ditch. I think, this activities, practices like remembrance and say chanting helps you maintain that continuation. I mean, that's what I felt when I was hearing Captain speak.
Yeah. That reminds me, it's in Gurbani, like in Sikh scriptures too. In Gurbani, there's a lot of it has even a lot of stuff from other saints too, like Kabir, Bulle Shah. But
Yes.
the main one is it has like washing yourself, you're not washed. Even keeping mourn, you're not like silence won't get you the God. Basically, same thing like. But by remembrance, taking the name basically is how you get it. But talking about cleanliness, this is true. It sounds very mundane, but you know what? This is, I'm personally used to say that. मेरा घर थोड़ा messy upside down होता था, so I would just use this quote whenever it matches my inner self. And which is true. And I always say that कि मुझसे बाहर से सफाई नहीं होती. And in सफाई की terms में भी बात कर रही हूँ. Like I cannot have कि कोई कहेगा ना कि जल्दी से put it everything in the closet and clean. That's not cleanliness to me. But same goes for internal too. To me, I am very connected that way. And funny thing is, in the past couple of years, outside is getting sorted out as my inner is getting sorted out. But it's it's not, for some people it's very just simple to just clean outside. I'm not saying it that I keep it too like dirty outside, but still this is something I have used so many times, and like today the house matches my inner state, and it felt like that. And I think to me just naturally my inner time was so, I think it was so big, the inner was so big, so sometimes I can't get to the outer till I get through the inner. Not a very nice thing, in practical terms, very messy.
No, I loved your sharing, Jasmine. There much, honesty is needed to see this, to put two and two together. And I have seen people going through like really tough times, and, they just wake up and they start cleaning. It's basically that they're feeling maybe helpless, or maybe they don't know what to do and they don't know where to look. So, just do something. And because you cannot, I don't know, you don't have the, I would say, grace or the blessing or the courage to do anything to sort the internal, all the energies are focused on the external. At least something should look nice, that I should feel that, okay, no, my life is not that bad. The situation is not that bad. See how spick and span my house is. And how sad is that? And yet we all do it. We all do it. You know, this thing that let me just do something. If it's, I mean, let it be absolutely irrelevant, but if it makes it, I don't know, if it helps a bit, and whatever helps whoever, not saying that's negative, but I mean, when I feel like kind of doing, you know, kind of a lot of things here and there, I kind of just pause and see, कि, हाँ, what is the issue? Like, क्या problem हो रही है? What am I avoiding and stuff? So it can work either way. But yeah, thanks for such a practical and real life example. Yeah. Anyone else on this or anything else there? Yes, Sarda ji.
Yeah. Taru, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. As you said, now one of my friend, she is very obsessive about cleaning. She always cleans the house and keeps it spick and span. Even the COVID times, she she will not leave. She has a small kid, maybe 3 years old, but she will be very possessive about cleaning the house and keeping the house neat and tidy. But I used to tell her, why are you doing this? Don't do this. Why should you do? It's not necessary. Don't strain yourself to. But after doing everything, also she will not be happy. I used to wonder, see, she is doing so much of cleaning and putting in lot of efforts, but why that cleanliness is not helping her? So now we got the answer. Cleaning the inner self is most important. You mentioned the other day, Atmasnanam Mahasnanam. When we go inside, we will be able to find out what is the weakness there or what should be corrected. But unfortunately, most of the times we all are like that only. We are, searching some solutions outside, not really going inside. And we do not know how to go inside also. That is also the problem.
I would say that most of us, we have this mechanical nature about cleaning, right? Like it's so ingrained that, okay, this morning, this has to be the first thing, second thing, third thing, fourth thing. And it doesn't have to be that way. And it takes a lot of, I don't know, growth to see it doesn't have to be that way. It sounds funny, right? That it sounds like such a small thing, okay, you're cleaning your house. But to actually be okay, I again would want to stress on this, with unclean things outside. It takes, you're fighting with yourself because there's so much conditioning and patterns and past which tells you that this must be this way. And, a clean house. I don't know, I know, somebody I know, she says this a lot, ke, kutta bhi, I don't know, poo साफ करके बैठता है, मतलब अपनी टेल से ही dog also cleans and sits. He doesn't sit on trash. It's funny, but it's like, who, I don't know, like, who to eat.
It doesn't even make sense to me. मैं तो कहती हूँ वो कुत्ता है ना, इसलिए इंसान नहीं है, उसको और कोई काम ही नहीं है, पूंछ के साथ ही तो खेलना है. There's certain typical things that we hear, but a funny thing is, like I said, I have seen it in my life. It's my own personal thing. My inside, मेरा बाहर दिख रहा होता है. Like your house will tell you how I'm feeling, but not always as such. कई बारी for different reasons, Kabir is making mess, but but हमने cleanliness, outside cleanliness को we attach it so much because of our conditioning, कितना ज़रूरी है. So sometimes, like my husband is the opposite. एक चीज मतलब पूरा घर साफ होगा, पर एक कोई चीज उल्टी पड़ेगी, ये सारा घर बाहर आ गया. So it's just interesting how people see, and are talking about actually not so spiritual, but just how our minds are set. Okay, how our minds are set. So I have somebody in the family. He has a certain like image set for cleanliness. This is how we work, even in general too. That if the cushions are not put in the properly, it's not clean. पूरा साफ होगा, but अगर cushions हिले हुए हैं, तो वो साफ नहीं है. पर पूरा घर अब से थोड़ा साफ नहीं होगा, पर cushions पड़े हुए हैं, तो it's clean. So I'm just saying like the ridiculous ways we see things and how the mind works with linear rightness. It's funny. Um, Anyways, moving on to, I mean, of course, there's a balance and tough stuff too. Sometimes things get to you. Not saying, okay, I'm okay with the messiness, but even to accept, I have seen people obsessively clean. I think people say that it's out of sense of control they want to have, because when there is no there's inner turmoil that's having it too. So yeah, I think that's enough about cleanliness and that. I did have something to share, but Miraku, I think I lost it. It was a couple of weeks ago. I'll try to find it if somebody wants to go first. If somebody has.
Okay. Yeah, so moving on, I mean, more can be discussed on this. So, Sarada ji, would you want to, should I put up the Maya document, sorry, the Karma document, or you have something else to share today?
No, we'll go for the karma only.
Okay.
Not prepared anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's my understanding, this is what I remember, that we had done this, this introduction, then the background, and then these two paragraphs, and this is where we had left, right?
Yeah.
So just to read the things in bold, the main one, outer circumstances are merely the reflection of who we inwardly are.
Yeah.
And second was, we can change our reactions to difficult circumstances. We can turn the constraints of karma to our advantage by accomplishing strenuous tasks under demanding circumstances. So then only it said, if I remember correctly, the apex of free will is attained when we are able to do that. We can change our circumstances. So this is the Aurobindonian model of karma, and we are taking the next paragraph today. Yes, Saradaji.
Yeah. So how does karma really work? That's what we have to read, right? Yeah. How does karma really work? What are the hidden levers of its influence? As discussed in the page on human constitution, man has, besides the physical sheath, 4 other subtle sheaths, and it is through these sheaths that he remains in communication with universal nature on the inner planes of the vital, mind, and higher occult worlds. Our thoughts and actions get recorded and broadcast in these inner worlds, and that is why, unknown to us, we always attract the consequences of our works. The qualities and deficiencies of our soul are chronicled in our psychic being, which carries them across lifetimes. This recording of karma continues until self-realization, at which point one begins to spontaneously radiate the true power of divine love, which inundates the hearts of others and sweeps away antagonisms. Beautiful. It is in relation to this power of the self-realized soul that Patanjali said, Ahimsa pratishyam tat sannidau vaira tyaga. The person who dwells in ahimsa is protected by nature's self. What is this? We don't know. But anyway. Yeah, shall we stop with this? We can discuss, then we'll go.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The quality. I don't have any reflections for this because I'm not able to fully understand what is said.
So let's just go through it line by line and do it together. So
Yeah.
the topic is pretty good, that how does karma really work and what are the hidden levers of the influence? Like what does it get influenced by? So it says that as discussed in the page of human constitution, that's another document, man has, besides the physical sheath, 4 other subtle sheaths, and it is through these sheaths that he remains in communication with the universal nature on the inner planes of the vital, mind, and higher occult worlds. You know, there's a book on sleep and dreams, again by Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and in that, like, it's pretty pretty crazy, but it was said that, you know, right now, say if I'm here physically, right, like I'm doing this, like we are attending these sessions, but parts of our being could be in other realms, but because the physical is so kind of, you know, like pulling us down all the time, we are not aware of it. So I mean, it says that of course during, like when you are sleeping and the body is at rest, then of course you go, that is so for sure only, that you know you go to different realms and you, I mean, one will have to read the book, but even when I'm awake and doing this, I could be somewhere else doing don't know what. So, so I was just reminded of that. So of course we do know, although we don't know, I don't know if it's a realization, but theoretically we do know that there are different sheets, that you know different parts of it, vital, mind, and higher occult world. So this is what it says till now, that we are in communication with the universal nature on these internal planes. Our thoughts and actions get recorded and broadcast in these inner worlds, and that is why, unknown to us, we always attract the consequences of our works. You know, a lot of times we say that, you know, it was such a good person, why did so much bad thing happen to him and stuff, right? And I remember, you know, there's this book called The Perfect Masters. It was a very nice book. I forget who wrote it, but it was a very good book. In that, you know, they had written basically the life story, very, very short chapters, very easy to understand, about various masters and mystics. And one of the stories was about the Jain Mahavir, you know, Mahavir, Bhagwan Mahavir. And when, you know, he basically had removed his clothes, right? He was a nudist. And when he had, because, I mean, not that he wanted to be a nudist, he basically said that I don't want any attachment. Like anything, I don't want to own anything, any attachment. So clothes are also, you know, a thing that I own, and I don't want anything. So he gave that up too. And then, you know, a lot of people called him mad. He was like really badly beaten up several times. People threw stones at him thinking he has gone mad, because who, you know, roams around without clothes. So he said that basically this I know, I am kind of, you know, working on my karma. So I am basically, you know, like whatever bad things I have done in my previous birth, now that is being neutralized. And after this, I'll walk light. So something like this, like we don't know what's working where, and there are so many other stories related to this. Yesterday only there was a story about a Buddhist monk, you know, who basically wanted to start meditation. I'm not saying it exactly how it was, but he was not able to focus. So, you know, he decided to do walking meditation. And in walking meditation, he said that until I arrive something, I will not stop my walking meditation. So he kept on walking, and of course, he could not stop, he could not sleep, and he had to keep his eyes open. He refused to close his eyes. and his eyes, because they need rest. So after a while, a lot of infections started happening. They started bleeding and, whatnot. A lot of, some doctors were called. They were told, okay, you don't do this, you're going overboard or whatever, a balance needs to be maintained. So he basically, connected within, and he asked himself that, do I want to continue and I want to achieve, say, wisdom, or I want to protect my eyes? And he said, I want to achieve, like, I don't know, wisdom or moksha, like whatever, like, do I want to achieve the state that I want to achieve or save my eyes? And the answer came that I want to go on, because, I have to achieve what I'm here to achieve. And that's why I've started the practice. And they say that by the end, and it's a true story, it happened in one of the monasteries. And then his eyes, they got so bad that they fell off. And they, then, I don't know, he had some realization, and he could see that in his last birth, he was an eye doctor, and he had some issues with a woman, and he felt a bit, I don't know, any emotion, and he gave her a drug which actually made her blind. So this was his way, that, how the cosmos kind of equated that karma. I don't know the exact details, but just to give that picture that we don't know what is working, how is it working, and yet it feels, somehow when I'm going through a bad state and I'm not be able to make sense of it, if I can just remember that it's not about just right now, there's so much kind of balancing, giving, taking that needs to happen, that it just feels okay, that, okay, you take everything with the head board, because you don't know what thing it's kind of, negating, and you can just be thankful for that. Easier said than done. But yeah, sorry, I think gave too many examples. Yeah.
But Tarun, again, I'm just thinking along the same line. Why do we need to know why? Like, it takes us from the present. Again, the same thing with the. It's just the mind wants to get stuck with the why. देखा जाए तो जब पता भी चल गया, like I'll tell you, I did a past life regression something because I was just curious. So I don't know if it was real or not, but I was just curious what to see and what happens. But then after that, I thought, like, why does it matter? So I know it's a very cliche thing to say everything happens for a reason. So what I can do is right now is to be present with my own experience, So it comes down to kind of nature of our mind. Why में घुसना ही क्यों है? जो आ रहा है, उसका अभी क्या कर सकते हैं? And like how I think it.
It's okay, Jasmine. You can let it be in the background. Yeah, you speak. Yeah.
So it's like, we said this life is for progression. How Aurobindo, I think one of the lines that we read today, it's for progression. And so it's for progression. So, and how Monica says it, we use everything in our life as a raw material. So, it kind of frees you. I'm sharing just my personal experience. Like I used to get involved, or even in thinking, in discussions, or in readings and all that. Like it's come down to the present, being present, like abject and man. So.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Jasmine. That's a very important thing. Even, in past life, I know these thoughts come, okay, how was it? Was it real? Because it's not very clear. And yet I think it's just that, what do I learn from it? I mean, if there's something I can gain from it, gain and move on, right? Like, because these things also can become slippery slopes, right? You want to do more and more and more and go down further in, rather than pick up stuff and move further. So yeah, thank you for sharing that why is so not important. And that's where we just get stuck, right? Why did it happen to me? And, why would this happen? And it's just, and I remember once reading, I don't know, something from the mother only, where she said that, something comes to you, like you're given an experience so that you can move beyond. And most of us, we are just stuck at the rate of, why did I get this pain? Why did I get this suffering? And we don't go where it's supposed to take us. So again, the universe gives you another such or a different experience, which is supposed to take you somewhere, like the same place maybe. And again, you're like, this happens to me only. Why does it happen? Then the third time the universe rings your bell and you're like, oh my God, you see how, the whole universe is conspiring against me, that I'm kind of experiencing the same things. Like, but I don't realize that it's trying to show me something which I'm refusing to see. So this is something that I've seen with a few people, with myself, that I'm, the universe is so kind and so patient that unless I learn, it will keep sending me the same people under different names and faces, similar situations, until I say that, oh, this is what it was trying to show me. Yeah. Anything from anybody? Okay, so moving on. So it's said that our thoughts and actions get recorded and broadcast in these inner worlds. And that is why, unknown to us, we always attract the consequences of our work. The qualities and deficiencies of our soul are chronicled in a psychic being, which carries them across lifetime. This answers that question, that what goes, right? What stays, what goes ahead? How do we know what is to be done, what is not to be done? And this one thing, I think the last one also is like so important. And that is why, there's so much text, or it's written that if you actually want to break the cycle of karma, then the answer is, nishkarm kam. And I know once we had discussed this topic, Captain had shared quite a bit on that thing, that how once you let go of the result of your action, the theory of karma would not apply to you. Because we keep doing stuff, we keep maintaining those circles, the things keep moving, and we attract the same thing so that we can move beyond. So the qualities and deficiencies of our soul are chronicled in a psychic being, which carries across lifetime. This recording of karma continues until self-realization, at which point one begins to spontaneously radiate the true power of divine love, which inundates the hearts of others and sweeps away all antagonisms. Okay, then it doesn't matter, it's like, these rules, the rules of karma were to play the game. And now that you have seen the vyarthata, the impermanence, the unimportance of the games that you play, now they don't matter. Like Mother says so often in her prayers that, now divine law is what applies to you. So it is in relation to this power of the self-realized soul that Patanjali said, the person who dwells in ahimsa is protected by nature itself. When you're not wildly, kind of hurting anything, then nature protects you. You don't need to protect yourself. Ahimsa pratishtham tat sanidhyo vaira tyagaha. Yeah, so that was what basically I got. Any reflection, sharing, further questions are welcome.
So, Taru, that means that if we are, if we can love anybody at all point of time and without having any hatred, so the account of the karma will be settled. Is that what is the meaning? That's what it says. The qualities and deficiencies of our soul are chronicled in our psychic being, which carries them across lifetimes. This recordings of karma continues until self-realization, at which point one begins to spontaneously radiate the true power of divine love, which inundates the hearts of others and sweeps away antagonisms. I think that is what is the meaning. We should not have any
basically,
hatred.
yeah, so it's like, it's like me, I being who I am. If I just use this sentence that I should not hate anyone, that doesn't happen. So basically here you see, it's like, I don't know, it's like lifetimes and lifetimes, right? That until you achieve self-realization that I am not the small self that I take myself to be. When I know that I am divine and I am one with divine and I have achieved the self-realization of being the ocean, then automatically, spontaneously, the true power of divine love. They say there is nothing else but divine love everywhere, and yet we don't feel it, right? We don't feel that in us or around us. We feel the world is cruel and full of violence. And yet, when we realize that, the self-realization state, then a spontaneous radiation of the divine love. You become that love, and then if you become something, you can not help but radiate. So it's not as simple as not just hating people, that's just one thing. But it's like you become that love. And when you achieve that state, I know, it sounds like what is it saying and how would that happen? And yet there are so many places where we just have to bow our heads and say that I might not, conceptually understand how it would work.
Yeah.
And yet, because, you are saying it, you have said it, it must work. I have that assertion, right?
Yes.
And of course, everything, it's like, a ladder. Like when I am done with this step, the next step will be shown to me. So if something appears a bit overwhelming or complicated, I personally just step back. And how mother says that if you don't understand
I'm going downstairs
something,
to make chai, you can come down.
So if you don't understand something, if you can just, stay with it. If you even don't do any research, don't talk to people, if you just stay with it, you will get the answers. And that's what, that happens to us all the time if we are aware. So just that, you just have that say that, okay, I might not get it right now because it sounds like, what are we talking about? What do I do? What do I do? And the thing is, do nothing. Just know that, I am love and one day I'll experience it. Till then, let me work on myself to make myself, getting myself out of the way of myself. So that's, I don't know how I see it. Yeah, please say more. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Captain, you're awfully quiet today and your camera is also off. Anything on this? Because I know you had shared with us some beautiful things about, about niche. What is the thing? Without thinking about the action that, okay, I will do this and I will achieve this. Nishkam karma. So you are not the doer. How mother says, make me an instrument of the divine. And we have discussed it often that, an instrument has nothing of himself. He gets nothing if he's played, if he's not played. He's just there. So that whenever, say a Krishna wants to play his bansuri, the bansuri is there. If he's playing it, he's happy. If it's not playing it, he's happy. He has no personal agendas.
That's actually the total surrender. Once the total surrender takes place, then it becomes like an instrument, and the instrument is being played by the divine in whichever way the divine wants, and the play goes on. And since we have surrendered, we don't have any individuality left to decide the course of action. So these are all the everything is with the divine. I remember a story where one king, he was ruling the kingdom very nicely, and the people in the kingdom were very happy and all. But after many, many years, then he felt that, it's becoming too much for him now and to run the kingdom. So then he sent his ministers to search for a person who can take over the kingdom and run even better than him, what he was. So then they found one person in a jungle in a forest. He was in the meditative mode and all, and so the ministers, they were waiting for him to come out of that meditation mood, and then they approached him and narrated that this is the king has sent us, and if you can consider to take the kingdom. So he said that, see, I have left everything, and I don't have any love for anything in my life, and now I want to live like this only. So, but they said that no, there is a king very much wanted. You are the fittest person to take over the kingdom. So they were casually giving again and again, and finally the minister said that, okay, at least you come with us and meet the king. So probably he will be explaining better. So then hesitatingly he went with the ministers to the king. Then king explained that, say, this kingdom is running and all, and I would like you to take over this kingdom. So initially he was not willing, but subsequently when the king was very much wanted by heart, he wanted to do, then he said, okay, I'll take over, and but one condition. With one condition, because once I become the king, then whatever order I give, every subject has to listen and obey. He said, okay, agree. Then he sat down on the throne, and he said, okay, from this moment onwards, I am the king. And then he told the king, the earlier king, that, see, since I was only doing the meditation and praying to God and all this, I do not know how to run this show. And you have been for many, many years, you have been running this show, so I employ you as my employer to run the show, the administration. So this is the task which I am giving it to you. So the kingdom is not yours, kingdom is mine, but I am appointing you as an administrator to run the show. So then king agreed. The moral of the story is here, every time because of our egoistic nature and that, we feel that this is becoming too much. So I am holding the responsibility of my family and things. In the office, I am holding something to do that. But if you hand over all this, which is troubling you to somebody, then you can perform better. The karma which we are doing, that we can do better, because this is a total surrender. Now you are surrendering to the karma. So this is the story which has come to your mind. So, share with you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Captain. It was, I don't know, a bit unclear for me, but I think the ending was clear. That basically the king was now employed by that person who he had appointed as the king. So now the old king could actually take decisions, do everything, because his stakes were not there. The kingdom belonged to somebody else. So if he lived like that, that would be a great blessing. So I had actually, I was reading a book called Enlightened Courage. And there was something that reminded me when Captain was sharing. I'll read it. Just 3 simple lines. Or I'll just read the small paragraph. We are at the moment in possession of a precious human existence endowed with 18 characteristics which are very difficult to obtain. So this is what the teachings say, these 3 things. Used well, this body is a ship to liberation. That this using this body, as I can use it as a ship towards, the where I need to go, that is liberation. Otherwise, it is an anchor in samsara. I loved this second line, right? Like, if used well, you can sail through. if not used well, it's like an anchor that you have just thrown in the samsara, and now you cannot move, do what you may. You're stuck in samsara. So this body is the agent of all good and evil. So I don't know, the second paragraph, that if not used well, it's like an anchor in samsara, really hit me. And let's pray that we use it well. So it's past 8, and I think we can end this today. Let's just, I don't know, just have 1 minute of silence. Unless there's any comment, like Nandini, I don't think you said anything. Do you want to have any sharing, any reflections before we close, or anybody else for that matter?
Thank you, Taru. I've just been listening. I've just had quite a busy week. So I thought I would just like to listen to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nandini. Okay, so let's just have 1 minute of silence and then we'll end. So thank you, and we'll end the session here. Hope to see us all next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Taru. Thank you, everyone.